The current definitions of the cluster B personality disorders, would you look at deconstructing them, or do you think that maybe the way it's defined now should also be?
I think all disorders which are not medical are social.
Right.
All. They represent a mismatch between the individual and his environment, or her environment. Of course, this mismatch creates distress and unhappiness and ego dystony. This is what these patients complain about. But as we discussed yesterday, it's a consequence of cultural and societal context. The very same people would feel wonderful if they are transported to another environment in which their idiosyncrasies are assets. It is the feedback from society and the environment that makes them feel bad.
Right.
For example, narcissists and psychopaths flourished in Nazi Germany.
Yes.
They didn't feel distressed. They felt elated. They felt victorious. They felt that they are the norm. And the histrionic women feel wonderful in Russia. They are the norm. Everyone wants to be histrionic. Everyone wants to be irresistibly sexy and provocative and so on. If you're not, you're pedestrian, you're zero, a loser, a failure. So cultural and social contexts, expectations and so on are very critical, so critical that I completely deny the existence of anything except this. I'm not talking about bipolar. Bipolar is biochemical. I think that the overwhelming majority of all other problems, which with no medical correlate, are absolutely interactive problems.
Right.
Interpersonal, with society, social dysfunction, etc., etc. So, for example, I regard narcissism as an interpersonal problem, not as a personality problem. I told you yesterday, it's trauma and so on. I think the main problem with narcissism is that it hampers it doesn't allow the narcissist to function properly in his environment, in his relationships, in his workplace, and so on. But take away all these elements, take a narcissist, isolate him in a room, give him supply through YouTube, and it's okay. What's wrong with him? Why should he be treated?
Okay. I had another question, but we'll be on that for all day.
What's that?
Well, I was
take a risk.
You could. It's just a thought experiment. I read too much sci-fi growing up. You could just say, okay, well, everybody that we've diagnosed as NPD, you make them wear a purple hat, and we just treat them differently. It's not a reasonable solution, but say that we just wanted to construct a solution, it would work.
You mean, I didn't quite understand.
You would say, if you could clearly identify, you could say, okay, this person has NPD. And you can tell by looking at them. There is some identifier. They need special attention, they need special care. And say collectively, we agree with them. We just say, yeah, they do. They go to the front of the queue. There's now no...
Oh, right, accommodate them.
Yeah, we accommodate, but maybe even beyond accommodation. There was a
result of pity and mercy.
Yeah, yes, more than accommodation.
Compassion.
Yeah, you actually do uplift them, you agree with them. There was a stand-up comedian, Louis C.K., who said this about Donald Trump. He did a whole bit about, well, maybe we're wrong and he's right, and we should accommodate him and, be kind to him and say, yes, no, you're right, you are very, very clever, your brain is the biggest, the hugest, maybe that's the way to go with it. It's silly, like, you can't do that reasonably.
What do you mean? We do it all the time. The vast majority of intellectuals, media people, showbiz people, politicians are narcissists. That's precisely what you do.
Yes.
You're telling them, yes, you're the funniest. Yes, you're the most intelligent. Yes, you should rule me. You should rule over me.
Yeah.
Yes, you should manage my finances. In other words, that's precisely what you do.
Well, then does the problem only really come in intimacy when you actually, if you're not having sex with them and you're not in love with them?
But that's exactly what I just said. Narcissism is not a problem. It's not. It's not like having a short hand.
Right.
Narcissism is an interpersonal dysfunction.
Yes. Yeah.
Narcissism is mismatch.
Yes.
It's another name for mismatch between the narcissist and specific environments, relationships,
Yeah.
and so on. Because, for example, if a narcissist finds the right partner, that partner would have sex with him, would live with him, and be okay.
Yeah.
There would be no dysfunction there.
Right.
So, and what you said, we are doing it already.
Yeah.
I mean, the overwhelming majority of our elite
Yeah.
are narcissists, and we allow them to become elite.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
We give
do
them money,
accommodate.
we give them power, we give them admiration, we give them adulation. We of course, we do that. We just don't put a yellow star on them.
I said purple hat, but yellow star.
Purple hat. I mean, all the rest we do.
Yeah.
All the rest we do. We do accommodate
Yes.
these personalities and even recognize their superiority because they rule over us, they control our finances, we admire them, we learn from them, we listen to them, not the other way,
Yeah.
etc., etc. We are doing it already.
Yes.
And indeed, these are for some reason called high-functioning narcissists.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. I never heard of high-functioning tuberculosis.
Right.
I mean, either narcissism is a clinical entity which is obstructive to functioning and ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta,
Yeah.
or it is not.
Yeah.
I don't understand how, if you take a narcissist from this environment where everything in his life is destroyed and ruined and disaster and so on, and you transport him to another environment, he suddenly becomes high-functioning.
Right.
Either he can function or he cannot function
Yeah.
if it's an inherent thing.
Yes.
If it's part of him, if it's internal to him as his blood.
Yeah.
Either he is a functional person or he is not a functional.
Right.
If I take a paranoid schizophrenic, never mind where I put him, he will never function.
Yeah.
If I put him in university and then I move into the White House and then I move him to a TV studio, in all this environment he will hear voices. It's an objective clinical entity.
Yeah.
It's independent of circumstances, environment, context. Not so narcissism.
Yeah.
If you take a narcissist and put him in another environment, he suddenly flourishes. He's functional, he's happy, and everyone around him is happy. I mean, narcissists are capable of making people happy. Of course they are.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Trump. He made 40 million people happy.
Yes. Yeah.
It's, and this is why I don't believe that there is such a thing as narcissism, as a clinical entity.
Right. Right.
As a social dysfunction, definitely.
Yeah.
As an interpersonal dysfunction, definitely.
Yeah.
It's not a disease.
Yeah.
Or a disorder or clinical.
Yeah.
It's simply a person who suffered trauma at an early stage in life, and that affects the way he interacts in specific circumstances.
Right.
Change the circumstances, he's okay.
Yeah.
Same with psychopaths, by the way. You take a psychopath, you deny him education and so on, he ends up in prison, selling drugs. But you put him through Harvard, and he manages a company. A big company, Fortune 500.
Yeah.
3.5% of them are psychopaths, diagnosed
Yeah.
by Hare, the god of psychopathy.
Yeah.
Diagnosed psychopath, 3.5%. It's a fact. I mean, wait a minute. Psychopath? How can psychopath be a pillar of the community? I mean, so it's not an entity. It's not a clinical entity. It's anything you want. It's I don't know. It's bad. It's good. It's obnoxious. It's, we can have argument, philosophical, ethical.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's not
criminal.
It's not a clinical
Nothing
entity.
to do with psychology.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with psychology. And the same for histrionic women. And the same for, I mean, if you look at everything that's not medical, trust me, nothing is left. There is nothing except this. I mean, all the rest is society's discomfort with idiosyncrasy.
Yeah.
It's a social, collective social, yuck.
Yeah.
Collective social, ooh, this guy's an asshole. Ooh, this guy is I'm afraid of him.
Yeah.
Psychopath.
Yeah.
Ooh, I mean, but that's not a foundation for science.
No.
Imagine you said, ooh, that's a helium atom. Can't
Ugh.
stand it. No, I hate helium
Helium.
atoms. Shalom. Shalom, okay.
Salam alaikum. What is wrong? What is going wrong with men and women today and relationships today? There seems to be a lot of tension, a lot of breakdowns, a lot of resentment, a lot of anger, divorce skyrocketing. Why is this happening now?
I think the question deals with two separate issues. The first one is intergender relations. And the second one is the disintegration of social organizational units. It so happens that one of the organizational units is a family. And it so happens that most families, not all, are men and women. So we tend to confuse. We say, oh, well, the family is disintegrating because relationship between men and women are bad. But of course it's not true. The trend, the upward trend in divorce started well over 100 years ago.
Right.
So divorce reflects what Emil Durkheim called anomie. Divorce reflects the society's, for lack of a better word, disintegration. The units we had used for at least 10,000 years, the units we had used to organize our life, to distribute resources as equitably as possible, to pass on wealth from generation to generation, to regulate relationships, to resolve disputes. All the units that we have constructed are no longer working, no longer functional, no longer useful, in effect. In principle, there's nothing wrong with discarding things that don't work in favor of things that work. So, for example, I don't see anything wrong in expanding the definition of marriage and family to include all possible variants.
Okay.
I mean, two transgendered, six transgendered in a house with 4 homosexuals. I mean,
that's the one I want, whatever that is. I want.
The homosexuals. So, I don't see any problem with that.
Right.
Some people adhere to rigid definitions. If the definition changes, the unit changes, but it's not true.
Yeah.
Everything, for example, nation state. Nation state is extremely new organizational principle. The first nation states were fewer than 200 years ago. It's very new. Italy was established 100 and something years ago. Germany 100 and something years ago. United States 200 and something years ago. It's these are new things. So there's nothing wrong with it. Before that we had empires. Before that we had monarchy. So and we're still alive and well. It's nothing wrong with it. So I'm not alarmed by the fact that the nuclear family, men, woman, 2 children, 1.5 dogs, the nuclear family is disintegrating, admittedly.
Right.
There's a lot of divorce going on as a form of dissolving this unit. And instead, there are all kinds of arrangements. So I don't see anything alarming with that.
Okay.
And I don't think that this is an indicator of intergender relations, because I think this is an autonomous process.
Okay.
Technology, globalization, opening up of borders. I mean, all this created inevitable stress on numerous institutions, as the European Union is discovering with Brexit. All institutions are subject to stress, and many of them change beyond recognition. Intergender relationship, there I agree with Peterson, with Jordan Peterson. That's a fundamental problem. That has little to do with these external stresses.
Okay.
Let's start with let's go a level deeper. Gender. Gender is not sex, of course. Gender is socially defined in specific social contexts. Gender is a series of functions and roles allocated to someone with a vagina or a penis. Now, you've been to Albania recently and survived to tell about it. And in northern Albania, and maybe you've heard of it, when a clan or a family doesn't have male heirs, they can take females and designate them as males.
Yeah, so they're the ones who can then inherit the
and they
wealth.
become males.
Yeah.
They have all legal rights of males under the Kanun. They bind their chest and so on, so they look like men. They dress like men in male clothing. They do men's work. They go to the fields, and I mean, they become men, utter men. They are allowed to sit in male company, in coffee houses and so on,
I didn't know
and
that.
smoke nargilas. I mean,
Right.
they're males.
I thought it was a symbolic thing, just so they
Not
could
symbolic
inherit
at all.
money.
They're
become
absolute males.
Men.
They're
men.
patriarchs.
Right.
They have patriarch powers under
Okay.
the Kanun, 15th
Okay.
century Kanun.
Okay.
They're males. They have converted to males. Of course, everyone knows they have vagina, but that has nothing to do with malehood.
Yeah.
So, gender is not the same as sex.
Right.
The problem in modernity, the problem in modern societies, is that both have been challenged simultaneously. Sexuality and gender.
Right.
Sexuality is challenged because it's no longer binary. We don't have male, female
Yeah.
in sex terms.
Yeah.
But now we have a whole spectrum. And you can be in the middle, at the end, you can change your sex, change back, and so on. So sex became very, very fluid and can no longer serve as the foundation of gender.
Okay.
So if sex is taken out of the equation, what remains? What underlies gender? Well, power. Gender has always been about sex plus power. These were the two components of gender. Power was codified in legislation, in actual power, informal power, formal power, but it's always been about sex plus power. If we take sex out, because it's today you can be a man, tomorrow a woman, today you can be transgender, you can have a lesbian phase and then go back to being heterosexual. I mean, it's totally fluid. Then it's no longer a good foundation. It's like sand, you know.
Yeah.
So what's left is power. And now, and this is without precedent, and that's where I agree with Jordan Peterson. What's happening today is without precedent in the entirety of human history.
Yeah.
Never happened before.
Right.
Power is contested on so many fronts that it had become the simmering equivalent of a civil war. Now, for me, not to mislead the viewers, matriarchy and patriarchy are the exceptions in human history. The vast majority of human history, men and women were equal. There was no patriarchy or matriarchy, but they collaborated on equal footing. For example, in hunter-gatherer societies, men went out to hunt, but the majority of nutrition was gathered by women, and most of the time, men were dependent on women for food, not the other way.
Right.
They brought an antelope once a month.
Every once in a while.
And so, then okay, they ate first. But generally, it was like that. And women controlled the habitation. Men were out of the habitation. Women controlled the kind of cities. Women controlled the children, which were a major resource, because only with children you could gather and hunt. And so on. So, women and men had kind of equal power. And in some of these societies, women were even a bit more than men. And that was the majority of human existence.
Right.
And then there was a minor phase of matriarchal societies, where actually women ruled, and women were on top. And we have echoes of this. In Judaism, for example, you're a Jew only if your mother is a Jew. I mean, the father is totally irrelevant. He's a sperm donor. And the mother determines a totally matrilineal society. So this is a distant echo of the... And of course, in the Bible, men and women have equal footing. I mean, no one implies that Jacob and his 4 wives he's like patriarch, and they are negotiating, arguing, disagreeing, agreeing, making decisions together, and so on.
I'd never thought of that. I'd never heard that before.
Yeah, I mean, have a look at the life of Isaac, of Jacob, of Abraham. They constantly talk to it's joint decision making. It's all. Of course, Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve were equals. So, and then something happened. What happened was agriculture. Agriculture required muscle power. Long before the plow was invented, it was the brawn, the muscles.
Yeah.
Men had more muscles, biologically. So they had a scarce resource, muscles, which you seem to have a lot of. So they took over. And a patriarchal phase started. But it's an aberration. It's a blip in human history. At a blip. And we are living at the end of this blip.
So you would refute, most feminists would say, oh, it's been patriarchy forever.
Not true.
So it's a blip.
Historically untrue.
Agricultural revolution, was that 5,000 years?
About 5,000, 6,000 years.
Okay.
It's historically completely untrue.
Okay.
It's, of course, agriculture led to cities.
Yeah.
Cities. In all these places, there was patriarchy.
Yeah.
But because we have our field of vision is limited in the best case to 10,000 years, we say, well, that's always the way it's been.
This way, yeah.
It's not, it's a blip. It's an utter blip. And we are living at the end of this blip. Why am I saying that's the end of this blip? Because of several developments. Everyone is pointing at the pill. The pill liberated women, they could fuck without getting pregnant and so on and so forth. Well, yes, it's good for sex. But that's not a major shift in power. Because women always knew how to avoid children. And if they got pregnant, they aborted. Really, that was not a major problem. If a woman wanted to fuck around, the risk of getting pregnant never deterred her. Right. Even chastity belts did not work when a woman wanted. Really. From personal experience, I was there.
You had all the tools to get it.
All the tools with the dinosaurs, and they're standing behind. So, I don't regard it as that a major revolution.
The pill.
The pill. I mean, it's important for sexual liberation. Don't forget that all this hype around the pill was in the 60s. Yeah. Free love, this, that. Yeah. So it's a bit the 60s to say that. I think there were fundamental changes, which ended the blip, ended patriarchy. And I think now men are revolting. There's a counter-revolution trying to regain this power, recapture it. Just totally hopeless counter-revolution.
Right.
Totally hopeless because patriarchy is not the natural state of humanity.
So
it's an aberration.
We're actually coming back to a natural state.
Yes, we are coming back to a natural state of humanity. In a minute, I'll try to explain why. There are fundamental things, not the pill. The first thing is, men fucked up. They ended up having 2 world wars, which almost destroyed the planet. Then they invented nuclear weapons, then they almost destroyed the planet a third time, and so on. And women had enough of it. During the First World War and Second World War, there was such a dearth, such a few number of people, of men, that women had to take over men roles. So you saw women in factories, women driving, women. Suddenly, women were liberated by circumstance. There were no men around. It's very much like the Black Death.
Right.
The Black Death liberated the working class, the hoi polloi, and they took over to this very day. Nobility is gone.
Yeah.
The First and Second World War, which were as cataclysmic as the Black Death, liberated women and gave them entry into male enclaves, which they never had before. Of course, women were free to cheat on their men. I mean, if the man was 5 years away and fighting in Fujiyama or wherever, I mean, suddenly they were sexually liberated. They could fuck around and with no penalty and so on. So it freed women. The power started to shift. It is not by accident that together with baby boomer generation, divorce suddenly shot up. It was going up gradually well over 100 years before, but it shot up.
Right.
Because women felt free and then again were required to be slaves in the 1950s. And they did not agree to it.
Yeah.
And then we have militant feminism
Right.
after Second World War.
Okay.
Militant feminism, because listen, I've seen the good life.
Yeah.
I went to a factory, I fucked around. I don't want to go back being your slave,
and
washing your socks.
There's now no longer a mysticism to what you do.
Yeah,
Before it was special.
I mean,
you
this
went,
is what you're doing?
Yeah.
I can do it with my hands tied behind my back and my eyes.
Right.
I mean, what's that?
Yeah.
Seriously? That's what it's all about. I mean,
I can do it.
And you want me to wash your socks? Fuck off. So the power matrix shifted irretrievably, irreversibly. Right. There was nothing could be done about it. It couldn't be taken back. And divorce shot up. One thing we discussed first time we met, divorce was the biggest transfer of wealth in the history of humanity. Nothing comes close to it. Not the OPEC oil boom, and not the gold rush, and not nothing. Nothing comes close to it. Every year, about 1/5 to 1/4 of marriages dissolve. In most such dissolutions of marriage, the man transfers resources to the woman. He gives her half the property, half the communal property, and he gives her alimony and supports her children. In economics, we call it annuity. Annuity is when you invest in an underlying asset, like a bond or a stock, and you get dividends for the rest of your life, or you get interest payments for the rest of your life. This is called annuity. Marriage is an annuity. You get married to a man, as a woman, you get married to a man, then you divorce him, and you have annuity.
Yeah.
You gained part of his property, and then payments, literally for life, if you're not stupid.
Yes.
For life. That's an annuity. Now think about it. Well into the 1990s, actually statistically until 1998, more than 90% of all wealth was generated by men through their work, through their investment. It means, and in this period, half the marriages disintegrated for 53%. That's the divorce rate. It means that half the wealth created during this, 45% of the wealth created during this period changed hands.
Right.
Changed hands. The economy of the United States alone grew, went up from $6 trillion to $15 trillion. In other words, in this period that I'm talking about, $9 trillion were created as wealth, and of this, 90% was created by men.
Right.
So $8 trillion.
Yeah.
And then they divorced, half of them divorced. So that would make $4 trillion. And shared the property. That would make $2 trillion. $2 trillion changed hands. Moved from men to women. Mind you, single women.
Yeah.
No longer attached to any men.
Yeah.
Suddenly, there was a whole class of single women with money, wealth, sometimes serious money. And that, of course, followed the money. That changed the equation completely.
Right.
Women became truly independent. First of all, they could find jobs. They had money. I mean, that changed the picture. It is true that when a man and woman live together, they are much richer than when they live apart.
Sure.
But it's optical wealth, because the wealth is controlled usually by the men.
Yeah.
When they separate, the woman is much poorer, but it's all her money.
Yeah.
So this was the first shift in the power matrix. The second shift in the power matrix was the fact that we moved from muscle back to brain. Because you see, women are more intelligent than men.
Are they?
Yes, women score higher on IQ tests. Women are the majority of college graduates in the West, not men. Majority of college graduates are women. In some professions, overwhelming majority of graduates. The highest paying professions, advocates, doctors, and so on. And women are much more social than men. Men are much more individualistic and so on. We have shifted to an environment that requires intelligence, education, social skills.
Yeah.
It's a networked environment.
Yeah.
Women have natural advantage there.
Yeah.
Absolute natural advantage. And indeed, they're taking over. Feminists like to say, well, there's no equal pay for equal time, this is nonsense. If you look at the picture objectively, of course, every takeover, every transition, every fundamental change like this takes decades, sometimes centuries. I'm not saying. Of course, we are still at the beginning of this process.
Yeah.
But it's an absolutely clear process.
Yes.
Inexorable, inevitable.
Yeah.
In no more than 50 years, 50, women will be utterly dominant as men used to be for 10,000 years, for 5,000 years. We are switching from patriarchy to matriarchy.
Right.
For sure. Already, 1/3 of all breadwinners in the United States are women. Already 40% of all children are raised by single mothers, etc., etc. So, and in some professions like law, medicine, and so on, women are the majority. And most importantly, most college graduates are women. Today, without college education, you're dead. You're confined and consigned to the lowest rungs of society. And majority, sometimes overwhelming majority, are women. They graduate. Men are very good in solitary, individualistic tasks. They are not good team players. They don't collaborate well. Their narcissism is much higher.
Yeah.
And so they would be excellent programmers,
Yeah.
coders, or, but they're not really built for the brave new world that's coming.
Right.
Not really. Indeed, when you take a look at statistics, statistics say that about, new statistics, by the way, just released, about 40-something% of narcissists are women and 55% or so are men, and I believe that's an artifact. I believe it's because, I believe it's probably equal, if not, Okay, let's assume 45-55. You would have expected in support groups for narcissists, for victims of abuse, you would have expected the same division. You would have expected 55% women and 45% men.
Yeah.
The mirror image.
Yes.
No? Majority, vast majority of narcissistic abuse victim groups are composed of women.
Yeah.
Between 80 and 90. Women are much better at networking, interacting, obtaining resources, like support. Support is a resource.
Yeah.
And so men suffer alone. Consequently, they are much more depressed. They are dysfunctional.
Much more likely to
Substance
commit suicide.
abuse.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Suicide is a problem.
Suicide, substance abuse, etc., etc. So, if you don't know to obtain resources, including social support, you're doomed in this world. You're doomed. I think within very few decades, we're going to see a matriarchal. No, men realize that. Of course they realize it. Women take their jobs. Women are much better at networking. They sit in a class in college. Everyone is a woman. I mean, they feel besieged. They feel besieged. So we have new movements. Incels, men go their own way, red pillars. We have new movements. Rebellion against matriarchy. Looming, impending matriarchy.
Okay.
These groups are right. They are not wrong. Everyone says they're wrong. They're idiots. They're retards. No. They identify the coming revolution. They are right about it 100%. It's like the aristocracy in Russia in 1913 predicting that communism is coming and trying to assassinate Lenin.
Yeah.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
Women are coming.
Right.
And women are going to dominate. And you're going to be the slaves of women as women have been your slaves.
Right.
They're absolutely right about their prognosis.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It won't happen to me.
Sorry?
It can't happen to me.
That you'll be slave of a woman.
Yes, no, I will have a harem of several women. They'll all be mind-controlled slaves.
You'll have a harem, you'll have to make money to support it.
That's true.
Slave.